Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Mickey, and in this video I'll be telling you why I quit teaching for online English teaching companies and started my own online English teaching business instead. So if that's something that you're interested in, then please stay tuned for the rest of this video. So in case you're wondering why I'm posting this video, I'd like you to take you back to where I started and give you a bit of perspective of why I'm here today speaking on what I'm speaking about. So I started my online English teaching journey in 2021. And back then, I remember when I was still trying to enter the industry, I had so much difficulty with the application process and just meeting the requirements of the online English teaching space, basically. And it took me quite a while to actually land my first job online. And after I landed my first job, I took straight to YouTube to tell people that I was working on this online English teaching platform and I was making good money, just to make people aware of the opportunity, because I knew that there were people who could use the extra income just like how I did back at the time. Anyway, after posting that video, I realized that a lot of people were also having the same issues that I had in entering the online English teaching space. And that's why I'm making this video today. Throughout this video, I'll be telling you all the difficulties that I faced back then. And I would love for you guys to comment down below in the comment section and tell me if you can relate to any of these difficulties or any of these problems and how you overcame them. Fortunately for me, I overcame them by starting my own business, and I would like to teach you guys to start your own business as well, but that's something that we're going to speak about at the end of the video. But for now, let's get straight into the video, and like I said, please tell me if you relate to any of these. So the first problem that I faced was that many of these online English teaching companies require you to be a native English speaker. They require you to come from a native English speaking country. I am from South Africa, and by definition I am a native English speaker. But unfortunately, the problem that I faced was that once you do meet that requirement of being a native English speaker, that you now are going to be vetted out and seen if you are good enough in the native English speaker space according to your nationality. There are 7 countries in this world that are deemed to be native English speaking countries, and South Africa is one of those countries. Now, unfortunately, when you are from South Africa, you kind of fall at the bottom of the hierarchy because most companies don't like South Africans teaching for them. They feel like we have a thick accent, or maybe they feel like we are just not good enough overall for the online English teaching space. So with that being said, they'll usually tell you that, oh, if you're from South Africa and you are a native speaker, then you have to have a particular accent, or maybe just small things, then you need to have a certain background, or you need to have certain qualifications, or you need to have certain experience and all of that. The bar is just really high for people that are from South Africa, from a native English speaking country. So I just felt like that was really unfair, and it really gave me a hard time entering the industry. I also feel like there are people from non-native speaking countries who would also like to teach English, but unfortunately they can't get jobs in these companies because they require you to be a native English speaker. So that all to me just did not sit right with me. So that was one of the reasons why I decided to start my own online English teaching business, because no one would tell me that my accent isn't good enough, or that my equipment wasn't good enough, or that I needed experience, or that I needed qualifications. I could just go straight to the students, and the students would be the people that are vetting me and telling me basically if I'm good enough or not. Another problem that I had was that I didn't have a degree at the time. So this meant that a lot of companies didn't accept me, like I did not meet the requirements. And I understand that that is something that comes with the job. Like in any profession, you need to be able to meet the requirements in order to get the job. But in the online English teaching space, I feel like there are still some things that you can do that pertain to teaching English online that don't require you to have formal qualifications, like teaching English conversation, for example, which is something that I wanted to do. I feel like teaching English conversation, you could still teach English conversation without having a degree. It's more of a skill than it is something that needs formal qualification. And at the time, I just felt like nobody would give me a chance, and this is something that I felt like I could do, like I could help people by having conversations with them, but I was completely blackballed just because I don't have a degree. But fortunately for me, I ended up applying on a platform called Italki, and Italki is a freelance platform where teachers basically go to advertise their services. Whether you teach business English or conversation English, whatever the case is, it doesn't have really any formal qualification requirements, so that's why I was able to get on the platform. So How italki works is that teachers go there, they advertise their services, like I said, and then students come on the platform to choose teachers. And you'll usually upload like an introduction video and you'll set your own prices. So when I started out on italki, everything was going well and smooth. And I was getting the amount of money that I needed, that I wanted. But unfortunately, the way the platform is set up, like I said, where students get to compare prices and they see, they compare teachers, like their videos and things like that. They now start comparing, for example, if you're teaching English conversation and there's another teacher that's teaching English conversation, but you're charging $10 and the other teacher is charging $5, who do you think the student is going to pick? They're going to pick the one that's charging $5 because why pay more for the same thing? And now what happened to me was that I now had to lower my prices to a point where I wasn't making the amount of money that I wanted to make. Basically, it just became not worth it for me anymore, because why am I now charging $4 an hour when I was charging $10 an hour? So the platform became overcrowded. There were too many teachers and we were all scrambling for students basically. And basically that's why I stopped teaching on italki, because it just became too competitive and I had to lower my prices to, $4, $5 an hour, and it just wasn't worth it for me anymore, which I feel like is a huge disadvantage for working on freelance platforms. Another reason why I stopped teaching for online English teaching companies is this time zone thing. I do understand that back at this time I was in South Africa and a lot of the students that I was teaching were in different countries, but it is very inconvenient. For example, if I have time in the evening to teach from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock, now I have to wait for students in China or Italy or Brazil, wherever my students are. I have to teach them in convenient times in their time zones, and those convenient times for them could be inconvenient for me. So now maybe I have to teach at like 2 a.m. in the morning or like 5 a.m. in the morning, because that's when most students are on the platform, or that's when they are free. So things like that turned me off, and starting my own business allowed me to actually work when I wanted to work, because I got to choose which students I want to teach and what time zone they are in. Another thing that turned me off about teaching for online English teaching companies was that the income was not steady. Going back to the freelance thing, when you teach English online in freelance platforms, students get to see you whenever they want to, right? And you're not in control of how many students come to you. So for example, if you see 5 students this week, that number could well be like 10 students next week or 2 students next week. And most of the time it's not a number that the number isn't going higher and higher, especially on freelance platforms. It's usually going down because, like I said, there's a lot of competition on the platforms, and I just could not predict my income anymore because I wasn't getting students in a way that I could predict. This week I'd get a certain number of students, next week I'd get a certain number of students, so it was really hard to plan my finances. Another thing that I didn't like was that you weren't really in control of the kind of students that you want to teach. I do know that for some people, maybe if you're teaching on Cambly or you're teaching on VIP Kids and all of that, those are platforms that are specifically dedicated for kids. But I'm just talking about like freelance platforms like italki and Preply and all those other platforms. You're not really in charge of who gets to come to you, like you just take whoever, and sometimes there are adults that come to you, there are children, there are teenagers and all of that, and you kind of have to do it because you need the money. And knowing how unpredictable like the flow of students is, you just have to take what's there in the moment to make sure that you actually make good money on the platform. Because imagine if you turn away all the children that come to you or all the teenagers that come to you. At the end of the day, you need to make money, and you just kind of have to take what comes. And then another thing that I'd just like to speak on before closing up this video is that, in case you guys didn't know, I'm now living in South Korea. And before I came here to South Korea, obviously I was living in South Africa. And while I was teaching English in South Africa, I thought that it was okay for companies to pay me $7 an hour, $10 an hour, $12 an hour, because I thought that that is what people are willing to pay for English lessons, right? But it took me moving to South Korea, which is a first world country, to see that, oh, actually people do have money, number one, to pay the amount of money that I think is good enough for my services. So maybe if I want a certain amount of money when I was still in South Africa, I wouldn't really charge students that, because in my mind I was just like, who is going to pay this much money just to speak to me for an hour? But now, knowing what I know now, because now I'm like in a physical classroom with Korean students, and I've been able to start my own business as well with teaching English online, that has really helped me because number one, my experience of being in a physical classroom and just knowing the amount of money that parents pay for their students to be in my presence, to have a native English speaker in the classroom, right? It's allowed me to be able to price my services accordingly, right? Even online, because I do know, number one, that the people here do have the money to pay for my services. And number two, I see the amount of time and investment that they put into learning English. It's actually something that's really important to them because it's not a country where English is spoken like back in South Africa, right? If you live in South Africa or whichever country that you're in, right? And when I say South Africa, it's just because I'm speaking from the perspective of the person that I was back then. So excuse me if I keep on making the example of South Africa. But just in general, right? If you are in a country where people don't speak English, of course you're going to feel like teaching English isn't something that's valuable, right? Because the people around you aren't really reinforcing that idea, or you don't see people around you paying for English lessons and all of that, so you take it lightly. But now, knowing what I know, I really do feel like a lot of time, money and investment goes into English, so it's been really easy for me to price my services accordingly. And that's why I want to help people start their own online English teaching businesses, because these companies know what I know. They know that people are willing to pay this much and people are investing this much in their online English teaching lessons. Therefore, for example, they'll charge a student $25 an hour and you're only getting $10 an hour. So I want to help you basically cut out the middleman and go straight to the student. That's why I help people start their own online English teaching businesses. So if you listen to this video and you relate to any of the things that I mentioned in this video, please tell me more about it in the comment section. And lastly, I just feel like starting your own business, it gives you something that you can own. It's yours. And number two, it gives you flexibility and freedom. There's nobody telling you, for example, that you're not good enough because you're not this and you're not that, or that you need to do this and that to be good enough, or whatever the case is. You get to test out if whatever it is that you are doing, students like it or not. There are no external forces that are telling you that things are bad or things are good. The market tells you, so you kind of grow as a person as well. And yeah, those are my reasons. And if you are somebody that would like to start their own businesses, I would like to tell you that I actually do help people start their own online English teaching businesses. So if you are interested in that, please check the link down in the description box. I have a 5-day course where I teach you how to start and launch your own online English teaching business. So like I said, if you're interested, please click on the link down below and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.